Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Carmela, I work in Everest, and as Corina kindly said, I'm going to make an introduction about the about SOTER project, and also I'm going to explain a little bit the highlights of one of the pilots of our project, and Martin will explain the other one. Next slide, please, Corina. Thank you. Regarding SOTER context, the truth is that, as we all know, we are living in a digital revolution this past recent years, and although we are focusing in financial sectors, the truth is that this digital revolution is happening in mostly all sectors of the social life. So mostly the traditional entities has to become providers of digital services if they want to remain competitive. In addition, the current regulations we have to comply implies technological and mindset challenge, so that we have widen the type of entities that we have to interact with, and point at setting up tools to avoid fraud, reduce cyber vulnerabilities as much as possible. Also, with the launch of new digital services and connections, imply the appearance of new risks in terms of cybersecurity that must be addressed. SOTER looks for addressing this challenge by providing innovative solutions to the sector from both perspectives, the technological one and the non-technological one. Our goal as a consortium is to strengthen this cybersecurity in digital financial services, although at a midterm goal, we also could be in other sectors too, and addressing 4 key points. The gathering and transit of the information of the customer, the human factor, the standardization of the best practices, and the training and awareness. For these goals to achieve, we intend to have 2 pilots at the end of the project. One is the digital onboarding platform, which is a technology tool to provide a robust and self-sovereign digital identity for the user, facilitating the interconnections between the different service providers and the users. And on the other hand, we have the awareness and training methodology for employees. This is the non-technological tool who intends to reduce the incidence of the human factor in cybersecurity vulnerabilities. Next, please. To achieve all these goals and to come up with these 2 pilots, we have an amazing consortium of partners in which Everest is both coordinator and technological partner, for example. We also have EADS, Trunomi, Innov, and the FNMT as technological partners. On the other hand, in the non-technological partners, we have Trilateral, RISE, and Unigrad. And finally, we also have Liberbank as an end users. Although it seems that we have like 2 big groups divided in technological and non-technological partners, we all work together, and some of the partners, in fact, are working in both sides. But this is just like a schema to that can easily be seen how we are organized in the consortium in a high way. Next, please. For the first pilot, which is the technological tool, we have the digital onboarding platform, and we could see this technological platform pretty much like a house or like this building. The pillars of the technological tool are the user consents management, because this tool has to be transparent for the user, as the data we are gathering, it's very sensible data for the user. We also need to identify the user very accurately, since the financial sector has to have the user identified very well in order to perform their operations. Finally, the user is going to end by signing the contract with the entity, and we will be using a blockchain solution in order to assure that the user's data is in fact their data, and to assure the immutability of this data. During this process of user identification, we are going to use some security measures like double authentication of the user. Also, we are going to use some anti-fraud measures to assure the security of this user's device. And also some authentication measures in order to assure that the user is the one that the user assures to be, so that the process become both very secure, both for the client and for the end user, which is the entity, the financial entity that it's going to be belonging the contract. For all this process to work, we have some foundations, so a base of regulations to comply. For the digital service to be secure, we have to comply with EIDAS, the Electronic Identification and Trust Services for Electronic Transactions in the Internal Market. Of course, GDPR for the user's data protection and compliance, PSD2 for digital payment services, NIS, the Directive on Security of Network and Information Systems, and also the AML Directive for fighting money laundering and terrorist financing. Another base of the technological tool is the cybersecurity, and in this base point, we are applying some cybersecurity measures in order to make our process very robust, such as the authenticity of the document is checked, and also the chip is not cloned. We assure these measures. Also, we are assuring that some data it's authenticated end-to-end to the servers in order to avoid man-in-the-middle cybersecurity attacks. Also, we perform validations on the server, assuming by default that the mobile device is an unreliable data source, just to protect all the parts. And also we have the evidence package protection through advanced digital signature and timestamp. Also, we detect whether the mobile device which is doing the onboarding process is rooted or not. Among other security measures like OAuth, HTTPS, and the regular ones. So regarding the introduction and technological tool, it's pretty much it. So I'm going to give the word to Martin Griesbacher, so he can tell you about the non-technological part of SOTER. Thank you very much to all of you for attending.
Thank you, Carmela. So hello, my name is Martin Griesbacher. I'm here to present you a quick overview of the so-called non-technological part of the SOTER project. It is non-technological as insofar as it is less about understanding technology, soft and hardware, but about understanding human behavior, the role of human behavior for enhancing cybersecurity in the finance sector. What you see here is a quick overview of the central issues we are addressing across different work packages in the SOTER project. So what we want to do is start with a basic understanding of basic interdisciplinary understanding of cybersecurity to properly address all important issues which are connected to human behavior. So the basic issues are that, of course, if you are an organization in the financial sector and other critical sectors too, the main issue is that you want to keep control of your digital assets. So you need an understanding of that. You want to make sure that you secure all vulnerability layers which give potential access to your digital assets. You want to understand what those problems which sit in front of the computer, which are not in the computer, are, and how to properly understand them, the role of human behavior. What we're doing next is that we want to identify the main areas of concern, so which you have to address to make improve cybersecurity here. And then the final step, and Camilla already mentioned it, it is about improving cybersecurity competence in your organization, improving the competence of your employees on the basic level up to the management level, so they can properly identify and handle cybersecurity incidents. And in the end, the project is also about, based on this also research and innovation action we're doing here, that we define new standards for the sector, because currently human factor-based aspects are not very much defined in current regulation and standards. They are very basic in regards to trainings and what issues you have to address, for example, for certification. And here we want to make some recommendations in the project too. Next slide, please. So I'll give you step-by-step quick insights into these central domains we're working on. So mainly, as you can see, it's more about than just in regard to digital assets, just the data you have on your computers. Of course, financial resources are currently also digitalized. They are numbers and in softwares, and they have to be cared as digital assets too. Also, knowledge resources of an organization which need to be protected, IPR and so on, and things know how to you solve your day-to-day business activities. And also reputational assets are currently in the digital age, digital resource. Think about your ratings on any websites or in the Google search. If someone tries to mess up your ratings, this could significantly lower the value of your organization and your activities. And in regards to basic information security properties, these properties, of course, you have to make sure that they are not changed, that they are not destroyed, or that you keep control of them, and that you make sure that only those people can access those resources who are authorized to change them. Next slide. So in regards to vulnerability layers, we know the basic ones, of course. We know that that you have on a technological level, you have to make sure that hard and software here on the information layer is protected with software based. Then, of course, physical too. Think of banks, think of door security, access security. But then here, of course, it starts already the role of the human. It's about protecting the social layer, which is very often the first access to a cyber attack. But also the legal layer, think about the GDPR and all these issues coming with the GDPR, and also the ethical layer that think about fake news, disinformation, review bombing, or something which could happen to your organization. And in the context of this, it is important that as a European project that we protect fundamental rights and European values. So all individuals involved need to be also protected in regard to their integrity. We cannot we have to make sure that our security measures take care of the individual's integrity. Next slide. So we did some analysis, just do a quick impressions with some images. It's about understanding the different types of threats we have in the sector, and also understanding the role of the human, about his motivation and the type of agent he is, if he's an internal agent, the classical insider threat, or external, or if it's an accidental behavior, or if it's a malevolent behavior which harms your organization. So we are working on that too. Next slide. And while we were doing this, we identified three main areas of concern. The one is that you have to reduce human error. So that's lack of compliance, negligence, malpractice, everything which your employees could do wrong. Then, of course, separately from them, the malicious insider, so there, which is also always there's money, there's a threat of a malicious insider, which you cannot train, of course, because you can just train your employees to don't make errors, but you cannot train your people to don't act maliciously. So you have to do something differently here. And also you have to take care of legal and ethical risks. Disinformation, GDPR, what I mentioned already. Next slide. So we have a comprehensive understanding of cybersecurity competence. Also, we worked on this to improve awareness and behavior, which is the main point here to take away is that it doesn't matter how good you train your employees, you also have to take care of the organizational context, that they are empowered to really use their competence, and that you make sure that your organizational structures allow the employees to enact on their cybersecurity skills and awareness. And let's go to the last slide because time's running out. So this is the overall process of the non-tech part of the SOTER project, which we're following to overall enhance the cybersecurity in the finance sector, because we are also, of course, working on specialized contents in the cybersecurity trainings, which are relevant to the finance sector and not generative in all critical sectors. So, and in this way, thanks for your attention, and I'm looking forward to the other presentations. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. I think it's over to Professor Atabadi from University of Reading now for critical chains. Atta, are you able to speak? Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you see me?
I can hear you, but I'm sure I might not be able to see you. Yep.
I think you should be able to. Yeah. Okay. It was a bit sort of, my laptop was not oriented in the right way for the video. So you can all see me, I guess, more or less, yeah, and see the screen. So here we go. First slide, please. And here comes critical chains, a framework to essentially respond to the various challenges which we'll set out in a minute that have created pinch points and pain points indeed for the financial sector, and are at a scale which requires vertical and horizontal support in a sort of semantically aware, context aware, threat-based, threat-driven, risk-based security and privacy by design approach. And so critical chains is motivated to tackle this space, to provide the solution, an integrative solution. It comprises of 12 partners, as you can see. University of Reading, CEA, Erage, EY, Netash, RIA, Indra, Huanum Research, Fraunhofer, EMI, Guardtime, with their KSI technology, and of course our very much valued user partner, Poste Italiana, the banking partner, and essentially blockchain is about an IoT and blockchain enabled, critical chains about IoT and blockchain enabled security framework for a cyber-physical, an integrated cyber-physical solution stack to tackle the issues, challenges of the financial sector. Next slide, please. So what are these? And we see all around us evidence of trillions of dollars, euros, etc., that are actually sort of lost in the system, untracked in terms of illicit money movements. Only 2%, around a fraction of these are essentially noted and acted upon, and this has various causes, but some causes are obviously a lack of integrative information basis in order to act appropriately and decisively, and to follow through with evidence base. And of course, authentication and identity tracking across the piece, because obviously the proliferation of devices through which endpoints interact, the e-money business models that that evolve overnight, essentially the globalization, anytime, anywhere operation has provided many challenges for the banking services in terms of security and also compliance with new regulatory challenges that are intended indeed to support the combating of challenges in terms of fraud, but also to support harmonization. And that's a big problem actually across Europe. Europe's supposed to be an open market, a single market, but not 27 different, if you like, environments, legislative environments, enforcement environments with respect to financial services. And that's something that we can talk in the panel. But anyway, these have come together, next slide please, have come together to mean that we need to have a framework of vertical and horizontal solutions that will support the banking services. First of all, we need to have context-aware, semantic modeling of the processes and operational context, so that within each operation context, we can actually, in a boundary-sensitive domain or trust boundary-sensitive fashion, operate the appropriate data protection, data capture, data exchanges, which are, security and privacy protected. One aspect, anyway. Then of course we need to develop the integrity, an integrity layer. Exploiting blockchain here, for example, is an obvious innovative step forward, but blockchain does have issues with respect to the possibility of other exposure to risks of fraud and lack of integrity with respect to, for example, signing, digital signing, and appropriation of funds. And of course, with this, we have to have a way of modeling data flows, a better modeling, the transaction flows that occur across the system, to be able to flag up anomalous flows, etc. And B, we need to have multi-factor authentication, strengthen the authentication, hardware and software, hardware-assisted authentication, and so those services are an important part of strengthening the access control and identification. Always the challenge is the person behind the transaction who they say they are, and are the credentials valid, and has the process got some degree of integrity oversight, and in this way we can then begin to tackle these various pinch points and problems that occur. So essentially we can then integrate this within a framework, these provisions, the vertical and horizontal provisions, within a framework that in our context is, of course, the critical chains framework, and we can validate this in different contexts, and of course in the case of critical chains, we are validating the solution in banking, fintech operations, insurance claim settlement, and of course also a slightly different domain, but nonetheless also relevant to the ability to pay through mobile devices for purchasing any service or item, and maintain an account and have a flow of transactions. And in this context, we have toll highway, as a domain. So that is also a proving ground for critical chains. Next slide, please. So what are the issues that have caused this, sort of motivated our solution? Well, first of all, we know the cyber threats and frauds are growing, and there've been, really sort of rapid rise in incidents of cyber attacks. The attack surfaces with hyperconnectivity have increased. Therefore, the opportunity for fraud has increased. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is that the contracting processes are complex and essentially they are some of them paper based, some some of the legacy systems in the banking aren't actually amenable to the sort of audit processes and enhancements that one needs to do in order to bring up the level of security. Essentially, the globalization and blockchain have added to the complexity and created a situation where we have financial crime and malicious infiltration and essentially money laundering that is really on a global scale and needs to be tackled. So how do we actually approach the business of sorting this out, helping the industry? Well, we need to have accountability, integrity, and authentication, as well as monitoring, flagging, support for transaction flows, and as well, of course, support for the integrity of blockchain. And this indeed would require the services that we have designed within the framework as the vertical ones that help the accessibility from anywhere to any place, data integrity and privacy using blockchain, and accountability by adding the financial authorities in the end-to-end operation against, to help against financial crime. So we also consider the privacy and security by design as a horizontal layer that supports the entire framework. So this essentially sums up the motivation and the approach to designing the cybersecurity framework, which provides, next slide, which provides essentially four key elements. One is, of course, the critical chain main framework. This is really the cloud-based data transmission, communication, financial transaction horizontal framework. Then there's the cyber physical security as a service, which is composed of a blockchain core data integrity layer. So it's blockchain as a service. Then authentication authorization service, so authorization as a layer, and this is crucially supported by hardware-based secure IoT sticks realized at chip level, enabling sort of mini USB and Bluetooth authentication, and biometric authentication, so multi-factor authentication as a service. And then crypto as a service, which is essentially providing backend enabling symmetric cryptography, hashing through true number, random number generation, and key generation. This as a service, crypto as a service, and data and information security as a service in the sense of a hardware security model to essentially provide effective IoT connectivity supported by Bluetooth, low energy 5.0 chip, and combined with within the as a service model with the other services in order to complete the process. Of course, we do also have over, exploiting all this, the capability for flow modeling as a service to flag up anomalous flows. So this essentially sort of provides the environment for the technology support for the future of financial services. And essentially, the first prototype is due to be tested by December, and we are hoping to provide a further workshop in this series jointly with SOTER to go into more detail about than is permitted within this this presentation, about the technology we are providing and about the results so far. And we look forward to having everybody attend that one as well. I think it is in the second week of December, and further announcements will be made in due course. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Atta. Now it's FinTech with Anka Mirela Toma and Thomas Leach from the University of Pavia. I don't know who is going first, but just let me check that you are.
Hello, it's me. Yes.
Hello.
Hello, I will introduce the first part of the project, and then Tom will handle it with the second part. Will you go with the slides as you did till now, right? Okay, great. Welcome everybody. I'm happy to be here. I'm quite surprised. I mean, the level is very high and also very technical. Our European project is much more related to the FinTech area, and specifically we are 24 partners dealing with the financial technologies, risks and the opportunities with the sustainability of the risk management models in the finance area. So therefore, what we did since the beginning of the project, now it's the last 6 months of the we have 6 months of the project from now to the end. What we realized was to build a platform, a knowledge exchange hub in which the risks and the technologies and the advancements from academia, from research point of view, and from a regulatory point of view, were put on the same were on the same stage, and every partner, every collaborator was aware of what was going on. That's why we call our project knowledge exchange platform. What we did was to develop, the partners, what did was to develop some use cases in the FinTech risk management. We have, if you go to the next slide, thank you, Corina. We have 3 pillars in our project that deals with the types of risks that is the market risk and the cyber risk. That's why today we will focus on the cyber risk, but just as an overall introduction, what we did was to build benchmark use cases developed by our consortium, by the academics and the researchers and fintechs of our consortium. Although all these material, all those advancements have been disseminated and presented, and feedback have been collected from the 29 national regulators of all European countries, plus Switzerland, from the international supervisors, such as ABF, BIS, OECD. Oh my God, I don't remember all the partners that we had. Overall, all the international regulators, the BCM, IMF, OECD, European Commission, of course, the ABA, ESMA, EIOPA, ACB, and the panel of international advisory board and members. All those are collaborating, are testing what we do in our platform, in which we have research made by papers, codes, so share codes about our risk studies, and basically in all the research areas that we have, that are three: the big data, that is much more related to the credit risk, in which we develop some network models for credit scoring, for example. Then in artificial intelligence, we have use cases relating to the explainability of use cases, and basically to the sustainability of artificial intelligence models in the blockchain area, while we are more on the fraud detection side, with some use cases relating to the initial coin offerings, for example, with methodologies that goes from the traditional and classical statistics with much advanced and alternative sources of data and models. Again, in the last one is the cyber risk that Tom will later present. If you want to go with the slides, Corina, next one. So yes, this is just the overall. What we do is through subtext and through regtext, in which the national regulators and in the regtext, the banks, the fintechs, startups participate and are trained within this fintech risk management tools. We are creating a large network, and we are achieving. We are collecting and supporting the European Commission through the feedback that we have from all those actors, the European regulators, the national regulators from all European countries, the fintechs, the banks, fintechs, the banks, and the international supervisors, plus the advisory board. So what we do is a training, high-level training, in which we show the use cases, in which the authors show in detail the use cases, and the practical hands-on code, in which we replicate and show live coding sessions what we have at hand. Please, with the next slide. Yes, the partners are basically more from the academia area, because we have we have three fintechs, then academics from all most of the European countries, and they are all in charge of their internal activity within the national regulator, and of shared activity and regional cross-regional activities together with putting on the same stage more regulators and more fintechs with similar characteristics. The regulators in the fintech area and the financial technologies are very jeopardized, and this is one of the problems, and this is one of the issues that the European Commission wants to tackle. Basically, it's to map the approach of the single regulators with respect to the three areas that I was mentioning, so the big data, the artificial intelligence, and the blockchain. We are doing this through our system of training and feedback activities. Next slide. if you, I mean, the two topics that were introduced and use cases that we have are quite a bit far from this, from the topic of today. But Tom, one of the authors of the use cases on cyber risk, can introduce you how we are dealing with the cyber risk management measures. Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Anka. Can just to check, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so obviously thanks for letting us participate here. I'm going to speak briefly about some of the work that we've done on cyber risk as part of this project, which has been which forms part of the research of my PhD. It started as a collaboration with the Bank for International Settlements, working on two data sets. One was focused more on operational risk, the other on specifically on cyber risk. As part of that work, we kind of acknowledged that amongst supervisors and risk officers within banks, that cyber risk is sort of becoming more and more the prominent risk that banks face. But one drawback is that there is a kind of lack of high quality data referring to cyber risk, which is why we've had to, well, we relied on one operational risk database and another more broader, which covers cyber risk across the whole economy. But we've had to extrapolate results from both databases, really, because I mean, even though there's a lot of data contained in both of them, the quality and the information that you have about each of the cyber events, it's difficult to draw very concrete conclusions from both of them. But we've looked specifically at cyber risk within the financial sector and across the economy. The graph on the right just depicts, you know, acknowledges the increasing trend in the popularity of searches for cyber risk. And we've also had some recent, like the swift attack on the central bank of Bangladesh. There's been some high notoriety incidents that have happened, that have really drawn attention to cyber risk for financial firms. If you could move to the next slide, please. Thank you. So from the two studies that we've done, what we found in particular from one study, which was a cross-sector study, is that the frequency of events that is suffered by the financial sector is significantly more than most other sectors of the economy. So it's highly targeted, and there could be multiple reasons for that. One being it's one of the most probably profitable sectors, and there's money to be made for cyber criminals. This is just to highlight or reiterate that actually the databases includes both cyber attacks and non-malicious or accidental cyber incidents. So it could be like a power outage. But we found, yeah, indeed, that the financial sector is probably most at risk in terms of number of attacks. But since it's highly IT intensive, and it's also it's one of the sectors which has a specific IT cybersecurity regulation, that in general this could be because of two factors. One, that reporting is much better in the financial sector as well, and whereas in other sectors there's not so much of an incentive for firms to report any cyber attacks if it's not mandatory due to the reputational, the cost that could be incurred. And due to the, well, our research kind of suggests that because in the financial sector that there's probably more intensive IT training, more intensive IT usage, that in fact, despite suffering more incidents, that the average cost of those incidents tends to be lower than in other sectors that perhaps are less well prepared for cyber attacks or cyber incidents. So with that kind of brief overview, I will finish there. And of course, if there is anybody that is interested to hear more about the research, I can share links to both of the papers that have been published as working papers by the BIS. And thanks for listening to our presentation.
Thank you, Thomas and Anka. I think the next project is FINSEC, and we have Fabrizio Di Peppo from GFT Italia speaking. Fabrizio, are you able to speak?
I hope so. I really hope so.
Yes, at least I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning to everybody. I'm very happy to be here. Thanks a lot to invite FINSEC project to this event. And my name is Fabrizio Di Peppo, and I am the coordinator of the FINSEC project. Can you go to the next slide? Okay, perfect. FINSEC is a project that is related to integrated framework for predictive and collaborative security of financial infrastructure. The project is an Horizon 2020 project with almost 8 million euro of funding. The duration is 36 months. The project is going to be ended at the end of April, so we have left 6 months left to complete the project. Next. Okay, the teams composing the consortium are 23 partners with security experts, research centers, technology providers, academia, and a few financial organizations that represent end users working on the pilots. Next slide. Thanks a lot. What is the FINSEC objectives? FINSEC is one of the examples of integration between physical and cybersecurity that is fully dedicated to the critical infrastructure in the financial sector. The main results of the FINSEC project are a reference architecture that we would like very much that will become a standard for the future. The predictive security that has been implemented, such as the collaborative security, and the provisioning of a security toolbox and certification services. And why FINSEC is different from the other project? Maybe because of its integration between physical and cybersecurity, because of the increased efficiency due to predictive and collaborative security, and also because the reference architecture is very easy to deploy, and this leads to a very big cost saving in implementing the solution to the market. Next. Thanks. The FINSEC that didn't start it from scratch, so partners could bring some tools to the solution that has been integrated and enhanced during in the FINSEC solution. The main tools that has been integrated are the CM, Security Information and Event Management, Risk Assessment Engine, Collaborative Risk Assessment, an important ATM network security platform, a pen testing service and TLS assistant, the anomaly detection service, and the CCTV analytics. Most of those integrated tools started with a TRL of 6 or 7, and that for sure will be increased at the end of the project. Next. What was the problem to be solved that drove us to present the project to the Commission? It was, as I don't remember the name, the SWIFT attack has been already referenced by the previous speaker. But anyway, there was an increase of security incidents in the financial sector. Some examples is one. The first one is the 2016 SWIFT attack against the Bangladesh bank for about $1 billion US, and the 2017 WannaCry ransomware created issues to Russian and Ukrainian banks, and the 2017 Equifax with a data breach of 140 million consumers, and the 2019 Metrobank with an attack through the telephone network. And still in the 2019, another big data breach with more than 1 million consumers happened to the Capital One. This represents a big need of financial institutions to have structured and integrated security platform for protection, and the reason why we decided to present this kind of project to the Commission. Next. The concept of the FINSEC project is a solution that integrates physical and cybersecurity. We provided all the efforts necessary to make it real. All information coming from the fields are sent to a central FINSEC system that processes them and automatically reacts, predicts threat and attacks, and interacts with the security control center using the FINSEC dashboard that we created as a very easy, user-friendly way to interact with the platform. Next. And another very important point is the collaborative risk assessment. The collaboration service is a very big pillar where it's possible to share information of threats and attacks between different organizations, preventing possible issues. The sharing of this information is made through a security network that has been developed on the Hyperledger Fabric blockchain technology. Next. The deployment. What about the platform has been developed as multi-tenant solution. That means it can host data from different organizations at the same time. For this reason, it can be used as a security as a service deployed on cloud, but can also, since it is all integrated, can also be deployed very easily to the customer premises. The next slide is the image, the picture of the reference architecture. It seems to be very complicated, but even from bottom to top, we see that the field layer with probes sending data to the data layer and receiving messages from the services. Edge tier layer with the data collector and the actuator enabler. The data tier layer, of course, in the middle. And then close to the top, the service tier layer composed of anomaly and risk detection, predictive analytics, risk assessment engine, audit and certification tools, collaborative risk management, mitigation service. And then at the very top, the platform control layer with dashboard and the collaborative module. Next, please. This is my last slide talking a little bit about the pilots that we have implemented. The project includes 5 different pilots related to financial institutions, each one composed of various use cases implementing the integration between physical and cybersecurity, anomaly detection, and predictive analytics. Going quickly through the pilot. Pilot 1 is attacking the SWIFT network. Use cases have been developed for monitoring SWIFT messages outside the online period, monitoring failed login attempts or non-admin user login attempts outside of working hours, enforcing 4I principle for HSM administration, integration of PIN-pad, and audit and certification. The second pilot that was based on correlating physical and cyber attacks in buildings. Use cases have been implemented for data center protection and ATM protection. About data centers, access control, server rack opening procedure checked through CCTV analytics and servers login attack detection. About ATM protection, physical attack on the customer, physical attack on the ATM, loitering, cyber attack such as a malware on the ATM PC or the network, and then last jackpotting. About pilot 3, predictive protection of peer-to-peer payment infrastructure. The use cases have been implemented for predicting attacks on the payment solution, like transactions made from different locations and transactions made with suspicious amounts. The predicting attacks on the blockchain through transaction and sender addresses monitoring. Also, use cases have been set up for collaborative security and audit and certification. The pilot number 4 has been made for protecting the infrastructure of small financial institutes through security as a service. The use cases have been implemented for detecting bank workstation attacks, attacks to bank through internal VPN, internet banking attacks during login, illegal access to use the bank account, and illegal transfers of money, of course, dynamic risk assessment on PCI DSS. The last pilot has been based on insurance and risk management in public infrastructures. And what we have implemented is improving security during mobile app login through a face recognition and monitoring insurance mobile app usage through anomaly detections and predictive analytics. So my presentation is complete, and thanks a lot for your attention.
Thank you very much, Fabrizio. I think we will have to move to switch presenters 1 second. I'm just handing over the screen to David Goodman from Trust in Digital Life. He will be presenting for cybersecurity for Europe.
Thank you, Karina. Can you see my screen? You can.
Yes, yes.
Right, thank you for inviting us. Cybersec for Europe is one of the 4 pilots, along with CONCORDIA, SPARTA, and ECHO that you'll be hearing from later on this morning. We're halfway through a 3.5-year project. We've got 43 partners. And what I'm going to present today is an open banking task, which is one of the demonstrator use cases we have. So the whole project is not about finance. So this is a task within a work package that I'm going to show to you. And our main focus has been around fraud. And the rationale for the work that we're doing is based around a fraud report from a bank, which basically divided up the the trends in fraud attacks into three broad categories. The first one being around identity theft, essentially using phishing or malware, fraudsters being able to get access to customer accounts. The second one being the abuse of customers, so-called, through social engineering or scams or various other mechanisms whereby money gets transferred from the customer unwittingly to a fraudster account. And then finally, the biggest proportion of fraudulent activity is when effectively the hacker, the fraudster, appears to be the customer and carries out the transfer of monies through credit or check or other mechanisms to his own account. And that accounts for more than 50% of the fraudulent activities. And interesting. So the first one of those is dealt with through the activities of PSD2 and the security work being done there. So what we observed was that the security innovation was needed in the second two categories. And we're going to be particularly focused on the last one, the fraudulent customers, as we will see in a moment. So the particular task and the particular use case that we're talking about today is it's called Open Banking Sensitive Data Sharing Network for Europe. We concluded that was way too long a title to repeat, so we've called it Obsidian, which works in a number of different languages, which is useful. And it's very hard to break, but which is one of the attractions of using the name. And the objective is to have cooperation both nationally and cross-border between banks and within banks, in fact, with very large banks working with their subsidiaries to prevent fraud by immediately sharing false IBAN information within a network of cooperating banks and other payment institutions once an attack has occurred. And it's really important to be able to protect the data in transit. There are, in different countries certainly within the European Union, data protection regulations protecting the hackers, which may seem counterintuitive, but there we are. And also there's the reputational concerns of the participating organizations who do not wish, never mind necessarily, to publicize the fact that they may have been subject to a fraud attack for reasons which we've been discussing already. And this will ultimately help provide access to information relating to money laundering and data theft and sharing of information relating to terrorist financing. So the overall architecture of Obsidian is that based on a number of assumptions. One is that each bank or each bank subsidiary owns a list of fraudulent IBANs associated with frauds or fraud attempts that they've experienced, and they're kept in a local database. It's then assumed that each IBAN is going to be pseudonymized, that's a difficult word to say, before being put into a committed, dedicated database, the internal fraud database there on the right-hand side. And then the Obsidian, the information is served with an Obsidian server, which will broadcast check requests and federate responses relating to suspected IBAN, which have been used for fraudulent purposes. And the Obsidian client, which sits within each of the banks, is responsible for guaranteeing the local pseudonymization, an even harder word to say, into the IBAN database, and ensuring that there is a connection made to the Obsidian server at all times. And the pseudonymization is done through a variety of hashing and encryption techniques to protect both the banks and the individual hackers involved. So by centralizing this information in the Obsidian server, it makes it possible for banks to exchange information anonymously. So in this scenario, Bank A, Bank B, Bank C do not know who each other are, and they do not know what they're going to be doing. This is really important for the success of this activity because of the sensitivity of fraud attacks. We've looked at a variety of different technologies to improve anonymity of both the data and the banks, which is the critical part of the innovation that we've created in this particular task activity. So the way that it works, if you follow the animation, a fraud manager or a system within a bank, it doesn't have to be an actual person, detects a suspicious transaction and wants to check the IBAN that has been circulated, and then uses the Obsidian client, which is sitting within each bank, to protect through pseudonymization and sends it into the Obsidian network. So at that point, the Obsidian server broadcasts the request coming from Bank A to the other network participants, Bank A and Bank C in this particular, Bank A and Bank C in this particular case. Obsidian server doesn't store any information except for a variety of statistics for measuring network traffic and other such things. And Bank B and Bank C don't know that the request is coming from Bank A. So they're just getting something on the Obsidian network. They've got a request. And because we've created the circle of trust amongst the participating organization, they trust the information that they're receiving. The recipients of the check request, that's Bank B and Bank C here, add a second encryption layer. And then those recipients of the check demand select their own pseudonymized data similar to that coming from Bank A and send them to the Obsidian server, which then relays them onto the originator of the request, which is Bank A. So Bank A has received responses to the check request, the check demand, and doesn't actually know where they've come from. So it could come from one bank, it could come from two banks, it could come from a variety of banks, but they're just putting it out into the network to see whether anybody recognizes the fraudulence of a particular IBAN. So Bank A then adds a second encryption layer to the data that they've received and then compares it on a commutative basis using the encryption methods, the properties of the encryption methods used with the information that they had originally. And if there is an equality, they know that other banks have found that particular IBAN to be fraudulent, and then they can act to protect their own clients. So that's the second layer of encryption you see in the animation there. But Bank A has no idea where these responses to the check demand that they issued have come from. So both the identity of the beneficiary of the IBAN as well as the participating banks are protected through this variety of pseudonymization using encryption and hashing. So this is a task that we're working on currently. Whoop. There we are. And we part of the work that we're doing is to demonstrate demonstrate this and to demonstrate the viability from a number of different criteria as part of our deliverable in the project. After the first phase of experimentation, which we're going to be starting towards the end of this year and carrying on through next year, we would like to leverage this network to fully scale to a European level. So we're starting off in France with the participation from our colleagues in Italy and hopefully elsewhere. And in the first phase, starting shortly, participants will connect to the platform, to the network, using a web browser rather than having to install the Obsidian client, which will come in the next phase. So participating in this, if you are a bank, is relatively easy to do, and we would invite anybody on this call or anybody within any of the projects that are participating in this event, if they would wish to join us in the early phase, using a web browser, so fairly light touch engagement. Please get in touch with me, that's my address. And I thank you. And hit down at the bottom, I've listed, we have 43 partners in Cybersec for Europe, but within this particular task, we have ourselves, Trust in Digital Life, which is Belgium-based, the Italian Banking Association Laboratory Abilab, and then Banque Populaire, Informatique Banque Populaire in Toulouse, the University of Toulouse in Toulouse, surprisingly, NEC in Germany, and a cyber range activity, which we'll be using later on in the project to do some robust testing. And I guess that's me done, finished in time.
Perfectly in time. Thanks, David. I will just take over again, real quick. Are you able to see the slides? Yes. So next is the SPARTA project, and talking for us for the CAPE program will be Hervé Debat from Institut Mines Telecom. Apologies, I'm sure I said that wrong. But
no problem. I know French names may be weird sometimes, especially
apologies.
It's kind of weird to associate mining and telecommunication, right? But that's French history for you. Yeah, so next please, and thank you for the introduction and for having me. Yeah, as was said, and SPARTA is one of the 4 pilot projects. We have 3 of them around the table. And SPARTA is built around so governance, of course, but it has also research activities, and these research activities aim at, on one hand, testing governance, and on the other hand, actually producing some useful research. And so we have 4 research programs in SPARTA. One of them is dealing with roughly CTI, called T-Shark. One of them is dealing with IoT security, it's called the HITE. The third one is dealing with cybersecurity aspects of artificial intelligence, it's called Sapphire. And CAPE is the 4th one, and it's looking at assessing cybersecurity properties in environments which are where it's difficult to do so. And it has a relatively strong link with certification. Typically, what we aim to do is help people develop secure software and help them on their way to certification. And we have 2 main use cases which we consider representative of what is being done in today's modern environment. One is looking at cyber-physical environments. And our use case here is addressing the connected vehicle. And more specifically, what we're trying to do is provide a certification profile for a mechanism called platooning, where vehicles follow one another. And so we would like to prove in a very restricted setting that we can prove cybersecurity properties for this environment. And the second case is addressing complex systems of systems. Typically, we can say that software systems are getting increasingly complex bricks that come from all over the place. We are looking at how we can evaluate cybersecurity properties for these things. And our use case here, we had actually originally 2 use cases. One was e-government, and the second was financial service. In the end, we didn't see so much difference between the 2 environments, and we decided to focus on the e-government, and more specifically to provide a certified single sign-on open source system. And actually, we don't develop the open source system itself. We use Shibboleth, which probably most of you know. But what we want to do is certify Shibboleth and all its dependencies. And we're working on providing tools to do that. And so at the end, what the output of CAPE will be is, on one hand, tools, and on the other hand, certification schemes that can be applied to these environments. Next, please. So as you see here, we are revisiting the classic software development lifecycle. And on the left-hand side, you have the link that's traditionally done between what we want to do from requirements to assessment and what we produce as software developers. And so by revisiting this V cycle on the right-hand side, you can see that what we're trying to align is both security certification, the relatively classic cybersecurity thing we want to do, but also safety, and that's to take care of what we want to do in terms of critical architecture. And finally, also all the things we do with respect to security engineering and making sure that we propose things that make sense. And we also, compared to what's done classically, we also extend our process to the configuration and the deployment of systems, as the aspect of DevOps actually brings a confusion between software development and software running. And so we included in our V cycle this aspect of deployment and configuration. Also, we include then the fact that we need in operation to provide regular cybersecurity assessments of where we stand in terms of operations. And we also go up to the end of life, because we've seen that there are many systems that actually never retire, and they end up being good backdoors for hackers. And I think that we have practical examples of how hackers used old systems to penetrate into the core of companies. So we want to really try to cover and provide tools for all of these various cases and aspects of what we do in terms of software development. Next, please. Okay, so a little bit more on the complex vertical that's the identity management. So all of you have an ID card, of course, and what we want to do is as a government be able to offer an integrative solution so that people on one hand can use their ID card to access services, and service providers can use this ID card to authenticate users. And so to do that, there are several actors. We have the terminals and the users, and the users need to install an application, and we need to be able to certify that application. The service providers need to interact with the user to actually delegate this authentication. In our use case, it's delegated to the Ministry of Interior in Italy, which is providing the use case, to provide the actual third-party authentication support. And so I'm not going to cover the complete cycle, but just to let you know that where we stand today is that we have defined our use case. We are working on eIDAS to make sure that we are compliant with eIDAS. And then we are integrating the partner tools into the tool chain that providing the development and deployment of this tool into the current system. So the important fact that you need to know is that we are relying on open source, and typically here what we use is what we want to certify is shibboleth. So we don't control the open source environment that we're using. We can contribute to it, of course, and we can modify it, but we are not at the core, and there are other people that are modifying this environment outside of our knowledge. There are also other people that are publishing vulnerabilities to this environment. And finally, this environment is also linking a lot of external libraries. And these libraries are also subject to vulnerabilities. Next, please. So the thing that we see is that we are relying heavily on software platforms that include software components that are outside the control of their users or even outside of the control of developers. And it actually turns out that this outside of control software is representing more than the software that is developed by producers themselves. So what we want to be able is to assess the whole package, including the software dependencies, to do proper risk management, cover all the confidentiality, integrity, and availability aspects, and cover all the possible attack channels. In the end, you could see that as sort of a software-oriented cyber threat intelligence that we want to automate, and for which we want to propose a diagnosis to the software developer so that he can use that tool to actually modify software and decide in conscience whether he wants to accept the risk or modify his software so that the vulnerability that he has found is not applicable anymore. We're leveraging existing well-known standards such as CVE and CVSS, so the Common Vulnerabilities and Exposure and the Common Vulnerability Scoring System, to obtain a number of values that are relatively critical to what we want to do. And we also use things such as the ICS cert advisories that are providing us with information related to the critical infrastructure. What we don't take into account at the moment, and probably we will not over the lifetime of the project, is a dependency related to, for example, the excuse me, the networking infrastructure. If you were to have a failure of BGP, a failure of DNS, we would not, it's not considered to be in scope yet. Next, please. And so what I would like to conclude is to give you an idea of the kind of tool we have. It's one of the tools we have is called Eclipse Steady. It was originally developed by SAP, but it's been externalized. And typically what this tool does is it's taking a system, a software, and it's looking at the dependencies, the dependencies that are included. It's looking at the vulnerabilities that are known for these software libraries that are included, and it's assessing whether the way you use them is important to you. And there are several ways in which these can be important. First of all, it's looking at static analysis in order to see if the vulnerable part of the library that is included is actually called by your program. And there is also a part where we're doing dynamic analysis, typically runtime instrumentation, to verify if the impact of the vulnerability can actually be recreated. And this system is actually open source, and we're integrating it into our use cases in order to propose to software developers a vulnerability assessment of the libraries that they are using. And as several of our tools, we're using the Eclipse project as a channel to help the community leverage what we are doing in this respect. And I think I'm finished. Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. And now, last but not least, we have the Concordia project with Ramon Martín de Pozuelo from CaixaBank. Ramon, are you able
Hi.
to? Yes, hi. We can hear you.
Hi. Hi, I'm going to present you the Concordia project and our participation from CaixaBank. For the ones that we don't know us, we are one of the leaders in the Spanish banking, and well, we are also very keen on innovation projects and participating in Edge 2020 projects. So if you can move forward, please, Corina. Okay, so Concordia is one of the large-scale pilots that were funded by the European Commission together with SPARTA, Cybersecurity for Europe, and ECO. And we are, I think that in terms of the number of partners, we're actually the biggest one. We are 52 partners, and we will have others joining in the next few months. We have a very cross-sectoral participation. Actually, we are representing the financial sector, but we had as well several other sectors represented there. And some of the highlights that I can say about Concordia is that we are strongly working on these threat intelligence platforms for Europe, and especially on the telco and the finance sector. Also providing a DDoS clearinghouse infrastructure for whole Europe that we pretend at least. This clearinghouse is especially working right now in Netherlands, but we want to extend this for the whole Europe during the lifetime of the project. We are building this European ecosystem for education and innovation that hopefully can be also collaborative with the other projects in the following years. And well, I think that we can move on to the next slide. Okay, so I'm here to present especially about this financial pilot and the things about training that we are building Concordia. I'm leading this task in which at first we want to focus on only in these threat intelligence topics for the financial sector. But at the end, we realized with the amount of partners that we are in Concordia, that we can exploit this knowledge, this multi-sectoral and heterogeneous knowledge and resources that we have in order to define other potential use cases to test in Concordia. So what we wanted to do is to analyze those tools that have been developed or have been developing by the Concordia partners, and how they can be used in the benefit of the financial sector. For sure, this is the main topic of that we have that we still have is the financial threat intelligence platform that I will explain later on. But we identified other use cases like this federated machine learning approach for exchanging information on threat intelligence, and also a collaborative improvement of the KYC. Both I think that are related with other approaches and initiatives and activities that you presented in other projects. So please, next slide. Okay, first of all, we focus on this threat intelligence platform, in which we based our work on MISP. MISP is the one of the most prominent tools used for exchanging IOCs and threat intelligence information at the end. We are building a core MISP instance in which we are exchanging information within all the different sectors. But with Atos, we are building some specific blocks that we want to put together with the MISP already existing platform, in which we are specifically focused on those on integrating sources from other platforms and other heterogeneous sources. So building those tools for example, extracting information from social networks. Atos has built a module that allows us to look for specific keywords and to translate the resulting information, searching in Twitter, and extracting and mapping it into an IOC that we can fit into MISP and then consume it. So this is one of the parts, the integration of heterogeneous sources into the MISP platform in order to be shared with other entities. The other activities related to this platform is to build an upper layer of our MISP for more granular control of the roles and the control of with whom we are sharing each of the types of IOCs that we have into MISP, and then trying to define or to extend the current financial fraud category that we have into MISP. That will be on one side, and on the other, and once we have all those activities more mature, we want also to work on processing automatically some of the IOCs that we have in order to transform them into real actions and operations into the bank by means of a platform that is building the University of Braunschweig in Germany for analyzing these IOCs and trying to extract the validation of these IOCs. Okay, so we can move next to the next use case. Okay, so but at the end, this is very related to the exchange of IOCs, but we realized that some of these IOCs we cannot directly extract it, or it's difficult to extract it and share it, and we want to go beyond this approach and try to exchange patterns of potential fraudulent accounts, or patterns of potentially cybersecurity attacks, and try to analyze them together. But we have some concerns about the privacy of this information that we can share with other entities. And at the end, we wanted to go for this approach in which each of the entities is doing the analysis on their own, but we have common consensuate model between the different entities about the specific frauds or specific cyber attacks, and share only the insights that allows to enrich your local models. Okay, so that will be in a very light way what we want to do. We are analyzing it with Imperial College of London and RISE, but by now only working on data that is not directly related to financial fraud. But we are trying to build this network of financial entities that want to collaborate on this use case, because in Concordia actually we are the only financial entity, and that's why we approach Cybersec for Europe, to Abilab, to Intesa San Paolo and the other members, in order to try to collaborate in order to define financial fraud use case, in probably related to fraudulent bank transfers or mule accounts, in order to identifying them with this common model built by all the entities. And we are just in this more administrative or bureaucratic activities in order to try to build and to establish this collaboration with Cybersec for Europe, and it's open to other projects to collaborate. Okay, we can move on. Finally, the third use case, it's also very related to other initiatives that you have presented in your use cases, related to the exchange of identity and information by means of blockchain, all the part of digital onboarding to streamline the digital onboarding. So the idea is as well, University of Luxembourg was already doing these activities with the ABBL, the Association of Banks of Luxembourg, and they already had a test bed in which they are like synchronizing some of the documentation of the KYC between two banks by means of blockchain network. What we wanted to do is to assess the security and of this pilot that they were already running, and to integrate it with other biometrics and identity acquisition tools that were previously done by Cyprus University of Technology in the RECREATE project, and try to integrate this information also in the process of the exchanging of the KYC. Okay, and by now we are just evaluating this test bed that was already running by ABBL and University of Luxembourg. So one please, next slide. And on the other, this is just a summary for you of the status of the different use cases that we have with regards to the financial pilot. And next slide. I just want to have a brief comment also on the training and educational activities that we are building in Concordia. This is managed by another colleague, but just to let you know that we have built this this map of the different courses that we have that we have collected by all the different partners in Concordia, but also it's open to all of you to add your courses about cybersecurity. It's not specifically on cybersecurity for finance, but if you already are building those specific for finance, you can directly describe them here and add to our map course. And you have the course calendar. You can move on. I think I have animations up here. Okay, so you can see here some of the courses that we have already there, and also news and reports about all of this educational environment that we are building in Concordia. And we are happy to collaborate with other projects. So that's mainly what I have. I try to be very lightweight, and we can discuss a little bit more into depth during the panel if you have any questions.